Okay, we are recording.
Cool, we're live.
Hey,
Jeff, you're on.
All right, cool. Well,
me.
give everyone an overview of how we do this and what we are. We're coaching Agile Journeys. We're all on a journey. We're all a group of volunteers that come together to continue this journey, continue learning. Just a little bit of history. I met Isaac as part of that journey a little over 2 years ago out in Dallas, and we became friends ever since. And the more we talked and the more we riffed, we went, there are a whole lot of people like us that want to learn more, that want to hear best practices, and we have a lot to share with the community. So basically, we've gotten to a partnership and brought Heidi on board and Mark and Lori, and we've just built a community. And that's what we want this to be, a community of learning and knowledge sharing and just helping each other out along that journey. We're committed to living that journey to the fullest, which is why we're passionate about this and why we did this. And we're dedicated to finding these highly focused topics. And just so everyone knows, we've been doing this for over a year now. I think this may be our 20th session, and we haven't covered the same topic twice. That's pretty impressive, and it was actually by accident that this happened. There may have been some subliminal thought of not to cover the same topic twice, but here we are, and we haven't done it yet. So,
yeah, absolutely. Right, so that's good point. So we're always looking for great speakers. If you feel like you know a speaker or you are that speaker, feel free to ping us. We're on social media. You can find us anywhere. Yeah, so actually I'll talk to ScrumDo here because ScrumDo has been our sponsor for the last few months and who is helping us out also. And not a lot of people know about ScrumDo, but it has actually built-in support for Scaled Agile Framework, which in other tools you have to pay separately for, like in Jira for Jira Portfolio, but that's built into ScrumDo. It's got those portfolio level Kanban and solution planning boards. So if you're looking for a tool, just give it a try. I think it's the most inexpensive enterprise solution out there. And it really is a good one. And of course, everyone loves the out-of-the-box Gantt chart, Agile Gantt chart. I also wanted to talk about this opportunity, which came to our door. Jeff actually brought it to my attention that someone had reached out to him. Her name is Lisa Evans, and that this Agile coaching role, it's open around the country, but you probably would want to relocate to Indianapolis since the clients are there, and it has a full relocation package. So if you're outside of Indy and you need to move there, you're open to moving. A salary position for one of the companies that's labeled one of the best places to work for the past 5 years at least. They are looking for someone with a minimum of 2 years of Agile coach experience and some kind of certification, but please reach out to Lisa Evans if you are interested or you know someone interested, and just mention Coaching Agile Journeys to her because she'll know where it came from, or just mention my name. We're trying this to try to bring visibility to those roles that we think would be a good fit for our community listeners. And lastly, if you heart Coaching Agile Journeys, consider giving us a tip on our website because this is all expenses that we incur with our time and our tools that we use. So click on our website, coachingagilejourneys.com, and click buy us some coffee and donate a couple of bucks to the cause if you like our events. Jeff, do you want to talk about our next session?
yes, sure. So I had the pleasure to meet Pilar Orti. Was a great conversation. She's very experimental and has a very open mindset and awesome in a virtual space. Basically, what we're trying to do is meet with her and experiment a little bit about some breakout groups and trying to create this persistent and stable virtual workspace. It's going to be a little bit of an experiment, and we'd like people to come and just be ready to try something new, and let's see where this takes us. So you can see by the text on the screen, you'll be a participant. You'll actually be actively engaged, and hopefully, we'll all come out of this with some really cool learning points on how we could apply this in a virtual space and create a really cool dynamic, stable dynamic in a virtual environment. So we hope you join us for this next one.
Yeah, I mean, remote and virtual work is just so common. So I'm excited to see this session, to see what we come up with, because it's hard to replicate sometimes the virtually those things that we can do in a co-located environment. So these are the tools that we're learning and these techniques that we're learning. So Pilar Ortiz, just basically great in this space. So looking forward to that too. Okay, so I am going to stop sharing my screen. We're at 5 minutes past, and I will allow James and Jerry to speak or share their screen or whatever. We turn it over to you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll actually introduce them. So I got to meet James and Jerry here in Jacksonville. They spoke to our North Florida Agile meetup, and I'm talking about a consummate expert of continuous improvement. I hope you find Jerry as exciting as what I found Jerry. He has a little bit of humor and levity in what he presents, and what I learned from him is he's at the top of the game when it comes to lean and continuous improvement. He also has a great track record. He received the Whalen Award for Medtronic's Top Leadership Award in 2012 for implementing a national model for lean at Medtronic. He was also introduced into the Shingo Academy in 2005 for his contributions to organizational excellence. He received the Shingo Award, a research award in 2013 for his book, Anatomy of a Lean Leader, which I'm sure he's going to cover because he had a really cool story about how he wrote that book. And he was also inducted into the Association of Manufacturing Excellence Hall of Fame in 2017. So we have a real Hall of Famer on the line with us. And of course, you'll see his son James is with them. James went into business with Jerry, and James is an active Florida attorney. And they went into business together in 2015. And they're two really great people, and they know a whole lot about lean and continuous improvement. So I'll hand this over to them and let them take it from here.
Okay, can you guys all hear us?
Yes.
Okay, I guess we just wanted to start with, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, we just wanted to start with our objectives for this presentation, which, I mean, we don't have a whole lot of time and we got to distill it down, so we just want to be as efficient as possible. So we're going to try to provide a clear, straightforward overview of lean, thinking some philosophy, the strategy, the systems, and the methods. We want to explain a proven path for implementing lean thinking throughout an organization, or really any organization, to present the typical results obtained from a successful lean implementation. And we want to compare and contrast lean thinking with Agile. I recently read the book, The Age of Agile, that just came out, and I learned a lot about it and just saw so many similarities and how they can help each other. So.
Great. I haven't read that yet.
Just some background in lean thinking. Jim Womack, Dr. Jim Womack, and Daniel Jones, his partner, wrote a book based on at the Sloan School at MIT. They did a 5-year study of the future of the automobile industry, and pretty ambitious task and all. And as a result, they really dove into what Toyota was doing, and they wanted to come up with a way to coin what Toyota was doing with one word, and they called it lean production. In retrospect, Jim has told me that he wished he didn't use that word because it has a number of meanings that are not really that great. If you look it up on the super thesaurus, you see it says, effective and efficient, and it also says unprofitable and scarcity. So if they would have known that at the time, maybe they would have picked another word. And that book came out in 1990, and it sold about 900,000 copies. So it really, people jumped all over it. Because at that point in the 70s and the 80s, the Japanese were kicking our butt in terms of automobile manufacturing, in terms of quality, cost, and delivery. So that got a lot of people's attention. And then in 1996, Jim and Dan came back and wrote a book, Lean Thinking. And that particular book is sold probably 600,000 or 700,000 copies. But it really helped to share with people some good case studies of different companies that were trying to do what Toyota was doing and having pretty stunning success. And Jim kind of really laid it out with Dan that it's just a way of thinking, and it's a philosophy and strategy. It's not a bunch of tools. I think that's one thing that really gave people an understanding. Now, you have to realize Toyota's been doing this since 1950. So it precedes lean and it precedes agile and all that. they do an unbelievable job with it, but they also aren't perfect. So they keep working to get better and better. So 65 plus years of experience there, the smart thing to do is to steal shamelessly from them. And that's what we're encouraged to do in the Lean community. What happened was Toyota had mentors for all their managers, but as they grew to be some 25 plants, there weren't enough people to mentor all the managers, and the mentorship lasts for at least 10 years. So they never wrote it down. Everything was done orally. So I saw one of the top executives speak in 2000. He said, we had to do something. We had to get this and to explain it to people. But the essence of it is really, it's continuous improvement while showing respect for people. And that is really why I enjoy it so much, because you can engage people's hearts and their minds, and they can change their own work environment, and they can contribute to the success of the organization. So the continuous improvement cycle, and a lot of people miss this, and I learned this up front from some of the top people. People say that, how did you get to meet Jim Womack? How did you get to meet Jeff Leica, who wrote The Toyota Way? I stalked them. I was told to go and learn as much as you can from the experts. So I developed a relationship with them, which developed a network, which allowed me to really have the best of the best to learn from. And even John Shook was my mentor, and John wrote the mapping book and also Managing to Learn. So he had a big influence on me from that standpoint, and also leadership. So, but the thing is, you got to stabilize things. If you don't stabilize, if you don't do standard work and document it, you're going to have so much variation, you can't improve anything. So what it really starts with is stabilization before you go and start to improve things. And then what we're trying to do is create flow. So we want not to have waste in between steps. We want value to flow. And to do that, you need to do the standardization and incrementally improve. There's just so much opportunity. Even Toyota today, they still have 40% after 65 plus years of non-value added activity in their processes. So you can see it's a major journey. Like I like what you guys said. You're on a journey. It's like the kids in the car. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? No, and we're never going to get there. There's no end to this. The opportunities are there. Go ahead, James. So the respect for people, you want to optimize the whole. So we want to get everybody engaged. So we want everyone, everywhere, every day working on continuous improvement. When I realized you got to keep this stuff simple. Some of the best people doing this that worked in my organization at Medtronic didn't even have a high school education. Some of them hadn't even graduated from grammar school, and they were awesome with this because once you gave them the thoughtware, the way to think, they were able to apply it because they were the ones that were closest to the process. So it's really teaching them how to fish. And the big thing is really they'll see where the waste is, they'll see where the pinch points are, and they'll also see where they're frustrated. And if they feel they've been empowered to go change things, then it's a win-win, you know. So showing respect for people, and I'll give you an example with myself. I had 1,400 people in my organization, 200 were temps, but all of the 1,200 of them, I knew their first and last name, and I knew about their families. I invested my time across 8 facilities, and believe me, you give people your hand, they're going to give you your heart. That if you show them, care about them, it's amazing how you can get people involved in change management and doing things differently.
And I just want to add that that's one of the rules during a lean implementation is not to cut people, because it's really the respect for people aspect of it. You want to improve with the people you have. And
yeah, I mean, in 20 years, I never laid anybody off. Who's going to improve things if they think they're going to lose their job? I mean, come on. Go ahead. Then the book, Anatomy of a Lean Leader. And the way that came about was John Shook, who's renowned. He was the first American to be a manager at Toyota in Japan and help transfer, the new me, where they turned around a General Motors factory. And he said, when you're done, you need to pass along what you learned. I wasn't into being famous or well-known or anything like that. I felt an obligation to share what I learned about leadership. And when I was in Japan at Toyota and other companies, one of the things that struck me was that their leaders were very different than the leaders that I had encountered. And when I was flying back over the Pacific, it dawned on me, it reminded me of a book about Lincoln on leadership. And when I reread it, I said, he has all the qualities of these people. And I wanted to select somebody to go study who had stood the test of time. Now, about half of what's been written about Lincoln isn't accurate. So when I was doing the book, I went to the scholars and all, and I had them vet every story that I went in the book. And it was a great experience. I ended up reading over 90 books. Please don't send me another book on Lincoln. I'm saturated with it, but I really loved it and enjoyed it, and it helped me to find a very meaningful way to describe what lean leadership is all about. Okay. So I had, there's so many people have so many different ideas about what lean thinking is about. And so I was doing the book, and I called Jim Womack up. I said, Jim, I have a definition, and I would like you to vet it and wordsmith it, because I want to be really clear about how I see it, and I want to make sure it's in line with the way you see it. So this is a definition that I collaborated with Jim Womack on, and lean thinking is an organization-wide strategy that focus on delivering ever more value as defined by the customer. The customer is the only one who can define value. It's not the marketing person. It isn't, the customer is the customer. It's not your VP in your organization. That's not the customer. You got to go to the customer. And through continuous improvement of processes, eliminate waste. I mean, if you go into a typical manufacturing or a service industry, 65% of what's being done is non-value added, and it needs to be, it's all waste. You just have to figure out how to get rid of it. And then another 35% of it is things you have to do, like accounting, IT, and HR. You have to find a way to do those more effectively and eliminate the waste. But only 5% of what we do in the eyes of the customer, it really adds value. Pretty surprising, and there's been many studies on this. Lean does this by engaging people at all levels of the organization, because you got to make it simple so people don't think, oh, wow. Some people, if you told them Six Sigma, they get a glaze over their eye and they go, oh, man, statistics. I use Six Sigma, but probably only 3 to 4% of the time. And in all the implementations I've been involved, all the coaching I've done, and it's good stuff, because you get to certain things where you got multivariates and you need something, a powerful tool. But I also feel that you don't want to take variation out of something you're going to eliminate. So I want to get rid of the waste first. And the other thing, too, is we want to engage with people at all levels of the organization every day. Now, a lot of what Six Sigma and Lean was originally was doing all these projects. Right now, where Lean is, 80% of it is small improvements and 20% of it are projects. So you're doing a tremendous amount of just do it, or a one-day event or a two-day event, and moving things forward. And I'll explain how everything gets aligned later on. But we do want to come back, James. Just the last thing I want to, I felt like when I was in the role I was in, I had a tremendous responsibility, because I could improve the work life and the experience of the people that work there. So they didn't feel like they were robots. They didn't feel like it was so mundane. We got them to think, and we got them to say, we need your help to do this. And they're doing it to benefit the customer. So I mentioned earlier about Lincoln. Lean leadership is very different than the leadership that I encountered for most of my career. Leaders in lean thinking organizations, they have some unique and contradictory traits. They must be servants. This is all about servant leadership. You put people first, And my wife used to say, how do you get these people to do it? I said, because I put them first. If you serve the people, they'll do anything for you. If they feel you're very sincere. And you also have to be a trailblazer. You have to be a good listener. You have to listen to people, and you need to mentor people, well as visionaries, and you need to be a team player. You don't always need to lead from the front. You know, my experience in doing this, I did thousands of improvement events, and I was just a grunt, but it was a good way for me to get involved with the people and see what they were experiencing. Also, the people that were running the events, to coach them as well, you know, off to the side to make sure we were doing it effectively. And we want to fulfill the organization's true purpose. And when I worked for Medtronic, we had a very compelling purpose. Every 2 seconds, somebody is alive or living a better life because of Medtronic's products. And so it was alleviate pain, restore health, and extend life. And when you talk to people about that and you relate it to their families, they can get excited about this. It's more, you got to get the right brain involved. If you just give people logical reasons to do it, they're going to look at you and go, oh, so. But if you can grab their hearts and get them emotional about it, they'll really want to do it, and they'll have a lot of fun and satisfaction in doing it. Now, what I thought the geniuses of Jim Womack was, and Dan, where they were able to take everything they saw at Toyota and boil it down or distill it down to 5 lean principles. And so I'll just go through them. It's really simple, and people get this right away. You know, less is more when you're doing this whole thing. You just give people what they need to understand and let them go do it. Customer defines value, so you really need to understand where value is. We work with a client that is a design build company, and that is a phenomenal opportunity. Nobody in that industry does it really well.
It's very new.
Very new, and James and I are going to try to create something with them that will give them a competitive advantage.
To give them an operational system for construction.
Then map the current value stream. The value stream is end-to-end from when the customer orders something until they're satisfied. So we try to look at it in terms of the system, and we're looking at it end-to-end. One of the mistakes I made when I first did this and went to try to create flow was I started at the end of the process. I started upstream in manufacturing, and then I created a train wreck in distribution. They couldn't handle it. We were pushing so much at them. So that was a very valuable lesson. But you want to go and map. John Shook's book was Learning to See. It allows you to see where the waste is by just going and seeing what's going on before you move forward. And then take what you have now and create a future state where you can create some flow in the process. And the big thing is to utilize pull. And why that, I mean, is the next person in the process should be going and trying to pull the work from the person before them. And they will also look at the service or the product they're getting and make sure that it's right. You know, it's to the standard. And that changes the thinking, because a lot of people will say, well, I'm not doing it because I didn't get anything from him. You have a responsibility as part of this value stream to go ahead and find out. And then the fifth one is to strive for perfection. People, you ask me, well, how do you keep this thing going? How do you, for 20 years, how did you keep it going? And why is it still going in Medtronic here in Jacksonville? And I said, because we're never going to get there. We're striving for perfection. But if you strive for perfection, after a while, you have a pretty good chance of hitting excellence. And so that's what the target is. So when we do the value mapping, we not only do the current, the future, but we also do the ideal state, a map, which says, it isn't possible, but what would it be if it was ideal, so we could think out of the box? So the one thing that's different, and I've seen some of this in Agile, is it's an inverted pyramid. So the CEO and the vice presidents and the middle managers, supervisors, they're all at the bottom working on ways to help what we call the employees or the money earners.
Another term for this is servant leadership.
Yeah, but what they're doing is they're the ones that help the employees are the ones that create the value, the ones that make the product, the one that sells the product, the one that develops the product. That's who we have to focus on to drive value. And in a lot of organizations, you have all these silos. Value doesn't get transferred up and down. It should be horizontal across the organization. So that's what we try to do in a lean organization. And I tell you, the money earners, they love it when you show where they are in the org chart.
And this is a different than the command and control, top bottom down kind of leadership. And you want to elaborate on that?
Well, a lot of people struggle with that. You know, I had people that work for me said, I don't want to do this. I said, fine, I'll help you. We'll go find another job for you. But if you're going to work here, this is the way we're going to work.
And that's what we'll get into a little later, that leaders need to adopt the correct behaviors in order to do this.
Right.
So,
go ahead. You're why lean?
Yeah. Oh, we can do why lean. Okay, so like, why implement lean? We gave you some of the reasons, but I mean, the main thing is you want to remove all the waste from the processes, so that people can focus on the processes that actually add value. And this will result in highly satisfied clients and increased profitability, and will take care of all that. But there's so much that we found, especially I come as from the law background in law firms, there's so much waste, stuff that the client wouldn't pay for. So what we're trying to do is to try to add the amount of time that's spent on the stuff that they actually care about. And so that, as I said, that would be to identify and understand how the client sees the value. And we want to relentlessly pursue that value, leading to more predictable, more reliable outcomes and improved efficiency and effectiveness throughout the organization, just to have it be running like a well-oiled machine. And the thing about lean thinking that we found, we're working in construction, and it just can give you a competitive advantage in every industry. I mean, obviously it started in manufacturing, but construction really picking up. We went to the Lean Construction Congress out in Anaheim, and there were 1,600 people there, and just very exciting stuff. And also healthcare and law and government and pretty much you name it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the areas, farming. They're doing it in farming. Toyota, Pro Bono, for the last 4 years is working with 80 nonprofits in New York City to help improve their processes for the people they serve. So it works everywhere. It's just, it makes so much sense, but some people don't get it. One of the reasons we're spending a lot of time on this is that Agile was based on lean. And what they did was, as you might know, they took pieces of lean and then made that into the manifesto, and which I think they call principles. A lot of them are values. Principles are universal, inarguable, and timeless. And the way I look at that piece of it is that you could collaborate great in teams, right? But you're bank robbers. It has to be anchored in integrity. So you anchor all the behaviors in principles that I mentioned are really like integrity and honesty and delivering value to the customer. Those things you can't really debate.
And I guess we can go into lean culture as you're seeing on the screen. Like, what do you need in order? What do the best companies that do this? What does it look like? And so you got to understand that lean is a journey and not a destination. You're always going to be continuously improving, and you're always going to be seeking perfection. Just kids in the car, are we there yet? No, and we're never going to get there, but we're going to be working hard every day to pursue perfection. There's got to be a strong foundation of trust among all team members. Like, people can't feel if they're doing lean, they're going to lean themselves out of a job, as we mentioned before. And there's got to be a strong culture of continuous improvement and respect for people, enabling effective collaboration with everyone throughout the organization. And we discussed the pillars. And also, you got to make it fun. There's got to be encouragement that celebrates the team and the individual successes, both if it's a major thing or if it's a minor thing, but a win's a win. And I guess we can move into lean results, and it's, if you want to.
Well, it's just that the reason we're hitting this really heavy again is because so much of Agile, I guess that husband and wife team, Pop and Dick or whatever, they studied lean and they drew. And some of the things they said are probably not totally accurate. Some people say lean is about process and not people. And as you can see from what we're saying, it's about respect for people. And So it's not lean, I'm going to do lean, I'm going to do agile. I just think it's really important, if you're following the agile methodologies and all, that you have a real solid understanding of where this came from and how it is really applied. So you may see things in here that you say, you know what, that's a good technique, that's a good method, that's something I ought to do. Go ahead, James.
Okay, we kind of touched base on this already, but some of the results you can expect from a good lean implementation, or one that's done properly, which we'll get into that a little later. But you can expect improved productivity, profitability, reduced costs. You want to increase the internal capacity to do more without adding people, unless growth is one of the things the business wants to do. And then you'll get higher customer satisfaction, whether that's internal or external. Like an example of an internal customer would be the next person in the process, like someone within the company that, we were talking about pull, right?
Yeah.
That they're going to get what they need when they need it. And then obviously we'll talk about standard work a little bit and what that does to substantially decrease the time required to complete every task in a process, like every part. And then the whole goal is, just like how Six Sigma is, less variation. So you want higher quality products and services with less variation. And I guess, I'm sorry, I apologize. I guess our slides are out of order. But do you want to pick up on
there's something I wanted to talk about from a culture standpoint. And I might have mentioned this when I was doing the local presentation, but nothing to me has ever been more gratifying than going to a Christmas party for the company. And this happened several years in a row, where I would have the spouse of the person that worked in our organization come up and thank me, because they would say, because he's able to think and feels like he's contributing, he's a much better husband. She's a much better wife. They're able to do homework because some of the things they're learning work. But to me, there's nothing, when you can impact people's lives in that fashion, that's what it's really about. I mean, you got to meet the company's objectives, but I think it's just how you do it is just so important.
Yeah, obviously, just with the culture, the one thing is you want to have a culture of problem solvers who are proactive. You want people to take ownership in their work, and people that take ownership in their work are going to be happier people. They're going to come home to their spouse and, be feeling okay, be feeling empowered. And that's one of the things that we look for.
I'll give you an example. We here in Jacksonville, we did a lot of improvement events. Some would be a day, some would be 2 days, some would be a week long. And they average about 40 of them a week in a workforce of 300 people. They really had a strong cadence to doing them and all that. And we had people who, like I said, didn't even graduate for grammar school or high school, and they were getting up and doing presentations for the first time in their life, explaining what they did with their team. And they only had 2 minutes, and they did a great job. Well, after a while, these people were annoyed if they didn't get asked to get up and do it, but we could only do so many in a given week. So to me, you're not wasting their minds. You're actually utilizing the intelligence of all these people and leveraging and getting.
Well, we're about to get that with the 8 wastes, and that's was added as one of the wastes is the using your people. So, apologize, this had gotten a little out of order, but these are just a few other things that can be expected with a lean implementation. You want to improve your risk management or control. You want effective processes and standard work throughout an organization. You want, no matter what you're doing, to try to reduce the time, try to compress the time, but have as high a value as possible. And then obviously there'll be significantly less waste, and you want to make it sustainable, which we'll explain that in a moment.
So really you get people to learn how to see what's going on is you teach them the 8 wastes. And that's what you tackle first with people. And it's defects, it's overproduction, making more than you need ahead of time. It's the wait time. You go and do a whole bunch of invoices and all, and the next person doesn't get it right away. It's a big batch and all. And I just mentioned non-utilized talent. You're not tapping into the brains of the people that can really help you. Transportation is just moving things around too much. I mean, some of the spaghetti diagrams that we've done to look at that is just staggering. I'll give you an example. We extrapolated in Jacksonville the movement of people. And we recognized that we traveled around the world twice a year in movement. And so the idea was, we got to stop all this movement and all, and because that's all waste and the motion. So, and extra processing is, if you don't do it right the first time, they go back and have to rework it. So just go ahead.
Explain this.
Yeah. Defects, efforts caused by rework, scrap, and incorrect information, overproduction, making something before it's needed, waiting time when work in process is waiting for the next stop in the workflow, non-utilized talent I talked about, transportation, unnecessary movement, inventory, motion, any movement, people, equipment that doesn't add value, and time spent on unnecessary steps.
And you ask, how do you eliminate waste? And the whole thing with Lean is that you use a systematic approach. So as my dad just mentioned, you begin your team-based waste reduction activities by identifying a product or operation that is inefficient. You're looking for waste. And then you identify the associated processes that perform poorly or need process improvement within that. Then, as we talked about earlier, create a value stream map of the current state to see where things are today. And that's the best way to where you're finding pinch points. And then you review the value stream map to identify the location, the magnitude, and the frequency of the waste associated with the operation. You establish the proper metrics to be able to track the waste to see what you're trying to study. And you begin by your problem-solving efforts by using the Lean principles and tools we talked about to eliminate the waste. And you review the metrics you've identified periodically, and you repeat this throughout the organization. So this coincides with the 5 Lean principles, how it's continuous improvement and it's going round and round.
And one of the things I want to share with you in Jacksonville and the 7 other manufacturing plants, operations, distribution, and all plants that I had, they all would review the entire plant in 15 minutes every day. And all they were looking for, they weren't trying to solve problems. If it was, we used the traffic light. If it's green in an area, it's fine. If it's red, we're SOL and, we're bailing out. We're really looking for things that are yellow that are potential problems. And they would put cards up with an owner on the specific thing, and then they would work on those offline. And that whole visual management was great because you could really see what was going on in the business.
I want to take a quick break right here to see if there's questions. I see questions are coming in, and I'm sorry, we're newbies with this. We haven't done this before, so I'm going to see what I can do.
No worries at all. Isaac, do you want to pull up the slide?
Yeah, and I've got actually a couple of questions from you that have bubbled to the top. We'll give you the top 2 from Slido so far. The first one that came through was, to you, what does it mean to have a stable team? Like, define that term a little bit, stable team.
Well, you want to have people that are trained, that know what they're doing, and that they're engaged. It isn't a spectator sport. Everybody has a role, and they have what we would call standard work for the people on the team. And we want them to exhibit certain behaviors. And that's something I want to emphasize. You don't, it's much easier to help people behave into a new way of thinking than it is to think a new way of behaving. It just doesn't work well. So we try to get people to change their behaviors, and then they start doing this stuff, and all of a sudden they change their mindset and how they look at things. So it's really making sure people know what their roles are, what they should be doing, and where they can contribute. And like I said, it's not a spectator sport. Everybody is engaged in what's going on. And there's a saying at Toyota, which I've always followed. If the student hasn't learned, the teacher hasn't taught. And so it's our obligation to make sure these people get it.
And you're moving away from a blame culture.
It's a no blame. Nobody gets blamed. The one thing I want to emphasize to you, and we'll take the next question, but is that we're like a bunch of scientists when we do Lean. We're doing experiments all the time. I saw an article, it was on the headline of Harvard Business Review, how to learn how to fail. Those people at Harvard have never failed at anything, I don't think.
Yeah.
But they realized that if you're going to learn, like the president of Toyota right now said, I've learned far more from my mistakes and errors and failures than I have from my successes.
It sounds like a cliche, but it's
well,
really
look
true.
at it. My example would be Thomas Edison. He failed 10,000 times in a year. Now, here's the way it works. You don't want to impact the customer, and you don't want to drive the car off the cliff. Yeah. So you need to be careful. But at the same time, you want people to take prudent risks, because the problem is there's two different types of mindsets in organization. A person out of Stanford wrote a book about
Carol
this.
Dweck, her name is.
Yeah. And it says there's a fixed mindset, which is a lot of the knuckleheads that I've dealt with. And then there's a growth mindset where people are open. They're not afraid of failing. And if you want to influence people to do something differently, you have to start with two things. And this is from The Influencer, the book The Influencer. I love it. It's number one is, why do I want to do this? And two is, can I do it? You would be amazed at how many people have this tremendous fear. I've been successful doing things one way, and now I'm going to try this. What if it doesn't work? The second level down is the peer pressure. What we tried to do is build people and get people that were really in and build this peer pressure on these teams. So you weren't able to sit on the sidelines. If we did an improvement event, no, you had to be all in. And that peer pressure is very powerful, and that's what you have to cultivate. And then you have a structure within the whole organization in terms of people know what's expected and how it works. So another question?
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll archive that one. So we'll go the next question at the top here. Actually got 5 votes. It's pretty good. How do you help move the culture towards caring about people when they're only focused on bottom line results?
Okay. So I'll give you I was very fortunate in a lot of our culture that we did at Medtronic. I got the opportunity to meet Stephen Covey's son back in 1990. And then I got to meet Dr. Covey. And then I was very blessed because on 2 occasions, I got 2 days with him, and then I got 3 days with him. And I got to ask all these questions and all. So the basis of what we did to keep it simple was we did the Covey culture, the 7 habits. And for 18 consecutive years, we taught each other the habits, everybody, top to bottom in the organization, to reinforce it. It fits so well with the work that you're doing with Agile and what we did with Lean and all. And that to me is at the heart of what you want to do with this thing. And the question about bottom line results, the way I approach things personally was I was going to do what I had to do Lean. I just need to make sure that I delivered some results, because I didn't get to play after a while if that didn't happen. I worked for a president of our company who was an old warhorse. And when I started doing this, the previous president, before it got sold, the company got sold, thought this was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he was fully supportive. This guy came in and said, this is stupid. We're going to stop doing this. And I was in an executive meeting with all the other executives. He said, we need to focus on the bottom line, this Lean stuff. Well, what are they going to do with the new boss? Everybody's going to agree with them. And I said, fine, you don't need me anymore. And the president said, you're a wise guy. I said, no, I'm not going to stay here and do this. We can do things through getting people involved. I'll get you the results through. I told it, so he called me down his office and he said to me, who do you think you are? I said, no, if you don't want me here, that's fine. By the way, I had a meeting with the CEO of all Medtronic, Art Collins. And Art thought this was fabulous, and he told me, when do you think it's going to be working real well? I said, 6 months. He said, once it's working, I want you to spread it through the whole corporation. This guy said, you son of a B. And he said, all right, you got 6 months.
SEC.
Yeah. And that's really what comes with it. So you have to find a way to deliver the short-term results, but do it in the right fashion. I had a boss of mine who got very frustrated with me because he always wanted to blame people. I said, it's not the people, it's the process. He said, what do you mean by that? We put very good people in bad processes and we get bad results. So what do? We fire those people, we hire smarter people, put them in bad processes and get bad results. And then we do that again. Yeah. The people at Toyota said, Americans don't get it. It's not the people, it's the process. You put brilliant processes and you'll get brilliant results.
That is tweetable right there. That's a really good one. We'll go ahead and let you continue with the presentation. And again, encourage everybody, if you want to go to Slido, upvote some questions. We'll pause again a bit later and get some more in as we have time. But we'll let you guys continue the presentation right now. That was a great quote, by the way.
Just bear with me for a second. You want to talk about the operation?
Yeah, I think one of the things with Lean that a lot of people didn't understand up front, the way it worked with Toyota was John Shook, who I mentioned earlier, was the conduit of a lot of the information from Toyota. So Toyota didn't let the information all out at once. They kept giving it. So, and people say, why would they share this information? Well, they sell cars in the U.S. and they want to help the U.S. economy. So they figured it would be a good idea to help the U.S. companies to perform better. And so one of the things that a lot of people missed was there was an operating system. Jim Womack preached to us in the book and all about how important it was to make a system and make this a way of thinking. And yet all he did for the first 10 years was roll out tools. And we had a meeting. They had 50 of us come from around the world to do a think tank. And we said, what you're missing here is you haven't come up with a way to lead this stuff, and you haven't come up with a management operating system on how to do it, so it's all integrated. So what happened was, as Toyota let more out, how do you align it top to bottom in this thing called strategy deployment? Some people call it a Japanese term, Hoshin Connery, and some people call it policy deployment. We don't call it policy deployment because people don't like policies. So we called it strategy deployment. And it's interesting, we work with one of the finest design build construction companies in the nation. And when we went in there, they have a great culture, but what their CEO and their COO said is that we want you to focus on change management because we don't think we have the right culture right now to really do this. So really work on that. So we were in a learn by doing mode throughout the company, really is doing stuff with people because they retain 80% of what they learn when they do it right away to try start to change their behaviors. And then what we always do is select a pilot area to implement lean methodologies and tools. And what I made a big mistake when I started out, because I'm very passionate about this stuff. I guess you can't guess. But what happened was I got everybody excited and everybody wanted to do it. And so we went an inch deep and a mile wide. And that's not the way to do this. You want to go a mile deep and an inch wide. Do it in one area really
great.
Yeah, and really create the field of dreams so that people will come in and they'll say it's undeniable, because you say, well, I want to roll this out across the whole company. I would say don't do that. Prove it in one area and then you can replicate it, because you'll have people come in and say, I want to do this. I like this, and when they can see tangible results. The other thing that Toyota let out was a thing called the A3 format. And what that is.
I'll show.
Yeah, he'll go through it, but it's an international size of paper. And the thing that Toyota and taught us was, we're trying to create strong problem solvers from the top to the bottom of the organization. And in order to do that, we need them to follow the scientific method. And we use the DMAIC, which comes from Six Sigma. And the reason we do that is that's what the people could relate to. It's more intuitive. Define, measure, analyze, improve, and control versus plan, do, check, act. People will get confused.
This is for every project or problem.
Everything we do, we embedded that. And that has been transformational in terms of changing people's behavior.
Yeah, it gives discipline.
Yeah, because I was
think deeply.
Yeah, with the executives in the company, they come in and say, "Hey, there's a problem here. I know what the problem is. We need to go do this." And I'm going to, what happened to defining the problem? Go measure, analyze. You're jumping right to the solution. That's what most people do. We need to do this using the scientific method, and it really had a tremendous impact on the.
You want to explain standard work a little bit?
Standard work is just finding the best way to do it, and get people to agree, and everybody does it that way in a particular procedure or process. And if you find a better way, then we all change. but you audit it to the standard work, making sure people are going to do standard work. Even at Toyota today, I remember going to Georgetown, Kentucky, and there were 12 cars all lined up, parked together. And I said, what's that? He said, we just found out what it was. We have standard work on how to turn the wrench, and somebody decided to do a different way. And now we've got these defects. So it's something that has to be constantly reinforced and checked and made sure. And the other thing is visual management. You want to make it so you go into an area or an operation and you can tell what's going on. You don't have anybody to tell you. That's the ideal in manufacturing or services. I know what's going on because they've made it so visual. And why do you want to make it so visual? You want everybody to know how things are going, but you want to be able to identify what's normal versus abnormal. So if something's not going the way it should,
you want to be able to know immediately.
Know immediately and take action. And people would say, like, was Toyota do that? Toyota would stop their manufacturing lines thousands of times in a week. As soon as if they couldn't solve it in 45 seconds, they shut down the line.
Pull down the rope, right?
Yeah, pull down the rope, and that's what. And the other thing we try to do is we mistake-proof things. And if you look at it now, on workplace organization, why do you want me to make this all neat? Because you waste a lot of time looking for stuff.
And that includes your computer, like how everything's set up. You want to have stuff right just in time.
And you need to audit the processes. And what that means is different people from management, once a month, they pick something, they go to talk to the people, see how it's going, what's working, what isn't working. You just can't put something in place and think it's going to not change. You know, you have inside and you have outside forces. And after a while, you put like almost a block on a slope as the standard work. And then you get entropy. All of a sudden, it starts to erode. So you got to constantly follow through and make sure it's still working. This is just a roadmap, and I didn't come up with it, or James didn't. This is from MIT. And
the
this
Sloan
is
School.
Yeah, Sloan School. This is considered really the proven path. And this is what I've used everywhere that I've worked on this. And I'm not going to go through everything, but it really is, it goes around in a circle. And one of the key things is to get the senior leaders engaged and to want to do this. And I think the question that came up before is, and I've said to people, I only have a certain shelf life. I'm 69 years old. My son's 33. He's the heir apparent, okay? I only have a certain shelf life. I'm not going to waste it working with a bunch of knuckleheads. So if James and I decide we're going to work for somebody, they'll say, okay, we'll let you know if you, thanks for the presentation. We'll let you know if we're going to select you. And we say, good. Well, there's two sides to this. We'll let you know if we want to come work with you. Because if we don't see the CEO, COO fully in like we have them at this company in Jacksonville, they're all in. I'm not going to waste my time because you can only take it so far. Okay.
You want to talk just real quickly?
Yeah, I think just quickly.
This is the A3 template. We were talking about the questions to ask.
And what it is that it's on one piece of paper. It's 11 by 17. We get some background information, and we try to understand what problem we're trying to solve. It's whether we're doing a half-day event, a full-day event, or a 4-day event. And then we go and find out what's going on. Not what people tell you going on, but actually go out into the workplace.
You want to mention a rapid improvement event? I don't know.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
But so we go and we try to find out what's going on. And it's funny, a lot of people think they know what's going on, but until you go see, you don't know. And talk to the people that are really doing the job. And then you find out what's going on. So you have a baseline. And then you say, okay, what do we want to do? For example, if I wanted to cut the development time using Agile by 10%, well, that would be my goal. You know, I want to go faster. I want to do it better. Whether this is for a problem you're trying to solve or an improvement. And why does the problem exist? We try to get to root cause. We start with the 5, 7 whys, and we do the fishbone. And if it's something that we need to use Six Sigma, and we use it, but rarely do we find, in most of the things we do, we don't have to reach for that. But we have people that have that expertise, and we just bring them in, and they serve the people by doing what they have to do. And then we come up with, in the analyze, what do you propose and why? And then we have an implementation plan. And then we have follow-up. Now, the way we do these things, they used to do what they call Kaizen, making things better. And people would come out of a Kaizen, a week-long Kaizen, and they'd have like 6 weeks worth of work.
You don't want it just to be creating a to-do list.
Yeah, we don't do to-do. So what we do is we call them rapid improvement events, and we do everything in 4 days or 2 days. One of the things that we found is that with our design build, they only can free people up for a couple of days. So we have to do a lot of mining. We have to go in and define the problem and measure and have that for them so that they can spend more time.
And that's what we had to find out, how we could compress it to create a standard rapid improvement event.
And the rapid improvement event is how you solve problems, run projects, and drive improvement.
I know we're running low on time, so I'll move really quickly. I just wanted to talk a little bit about, okay, what does this mean for Agile? How can certain things from Lean Thinking be beneficial? And as I mentioned, I read the recent book, I think it just came out this year, a few months ago, The Age of Agile by Steve Denning. And I thought that was excellent. And it just gave me more of a familiarization with how Agile works, because I had kind of surface level knowledge at that point. And the book's really interesting. He does case studies with Spotify, does a great job with this, and how also Microsoft has moved in to do an Agile. But as my dad mentioned, from what we saw, and as they mentioned in the book, a lot of what they're doing was taken from Lean, and there's certain things with Lean that could definitely enhance Agile. So here are some of the similarities. That the highest priority and purpose for both Lean and Agile organizations is to satisfy a customer by delivering long-term value through early and consistent engagement with them. And I know you guys are all more experts on Agile, obviously, about the iterative process where you're just going back and forth to really deliver what the customer wants. That's something we're also trying to do in Lean. You want collaboration between cross-discipline teams with the goal of inspiring all employees to deliver exceptional value to the customer. And as he mentioned, everyone, everywhere, every day. And also a quote in the book was, work smarter rather than harder. That's what we're trying to do. And you want both of them have a culture of continuous improvement, to where, as we mentioned, we're having people experiment, you're having people problem solving, innovators. And as it was said in the, Denning said in the book, radical transparency. You want people to be honest, you want them to surface problems, and it can really benefit.
One of the expressions from Toyota is, no problem is a problem. Because people tell you there's no problem, my antenna goes up. There's problems all over the place, so don't tell me there aren't problems. So that's what we want to do, is make sure. I always tell people, if you don't see a problem, we can help you see it. If you do see a problem and you don't tell us about it, you got a bigger problem. Anyway, go ahead.
I know we mentioned this a little bit, but one-piece flow is greater than batching, and in Agile they have small batches. You want to explain a little in Lean what that means?
No, it's just, one-piece flow could be doing one document, or it could be doing 5. You decide what is the optimum to flow value.
As we mentioned, for Agile and Lean to really be successful, senior leadership must be on board and demonstrate that inverted pyramid, the servant leadership, that with a growth mindset. And that will ensure the successful implementation. And finally, you want both Lean and Agile, you want to remove the ambiguity from workplace and utilize simplicity. You want to make the process simple. You don't want to overcomplicate things. And you use that through the Lean philosophy, the strategy, systems, and methods. And you can, for Agile, you can take the Lean stuff that applies, and it could definitely be helpful. So I think that's where we're going to wrap up that. I'll stop sharing.
Wow. Guys, this has been, in my memory, the fastest hour that we've had in a Coaching Agile journey. It's gone by so quickly. And so I want to say a big thank you.
You don't feel like you're drinking water out of a fire hose.
For sure. Also, I want to go ahead and announce we had a giveaway. And so while everybody was listening in, we did a randomized poll from our audience. So I'm happy to announce that Ingrid Suth is our winner. So congratulations, Ingrid. I've reached out to her via chat, and we're going to get her a book. It's actually the one written, I believe, by Jerry, right? What's the title of the book we have?
How to be a Lean Leader.
Yeah. How to be a Lean Leader. That's awesome. So we're really excited. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and we'll get that book to Ingrid. So congratulations on our giveaway. And again, guys, from all of us, all the co-hosts, thank you so much for this content. It was a lot. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch the recording, because there's so much to digest.
Yeah, we apologize we couldn't get to a lot of the questions.
Well, no problem. We'll have to have you back sometime to do a follow-up with all the additional ideas, because I feel like we got this much.
There's a lot of things in Lean, and if you understand them, they will help to enhance what you're doing with Agile.
Yeah. Love it.
Plus we got to get Jerry to tell us stories about how he stalked those guys. We also got to get Jerry to tell about that time that he was told to stop thinking about continuous improvement.
Yeah. Believe me, James says no more of these old man stories, okay?
It just shows his passion, how he really made it work, and it's
my wife says, you like to talk about your favorite subject yourself.
That's funny.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Go to our website, coachingagilejourneys.com, and join us on our next one. We'll see y'all later. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Jerry.